Step into the light where the wild ones roam, where the heart speaks loud, calling this place home. We break the rules, we paint the sky, ridiculously you, we were born to fly. Ooh, it's ridiculously you.
Hey everyone, this is Julie May and welcome back to the Ridiculously You podcast. Okay, y'all. So today's guest is here to ruffle a few of your little lace panties and your theological feathers a little bit in the best way possible. This is Angela Griffith. She is the Christian Sexpert. She is a sex and intimacy coach who brings unfiltered honesty, wit, and sacred rebellion to the bedroom. And she's dismantling purity culture one vibrator at a time, teaching Christian women how to reconnect with their bodies, rewrite their sexual stories. And yes, go with me here. Actually enjoy the sex you have. Like, what a freaking novel concept. But it is, because I grew up in organized religion, and it was so if you were ever the person who was told to be the good girl, just serve your husband, sit there like a dead soul and fake an orgasm and buckle up, that's your job. And I don't think that's how it's said, but I think there's a lot of us who grew up in a culture that as long as he was happy, and our job was to kind of do the thing for him. And I literally have friends that didn't have an orgasm until they were 45, 50. I kid you not. It's a real thing. So I really am excited to talk to you more. I feel like this is an important subject because intimacy is a big part of a relationship. It really is. It's so important to connect with your partner in that way. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Angela. Anything else you want to add to what I just said?
No, but I feel like I might want to steal that intro for myself. Holy Rebellion, yes.
Yay.
And whatever you said about vibrators, that's amazing.
I'll snip it and send it over. You're like, yeah, this is my new intro.
Yeah, this might be my new intro for everything.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. So Angela, tell me a little bit more about how you got into the work you do. Have you always been more free with your body and enjoying sex and doing all the things? Has that always been a part of you? Or was there a point where you were like, excuse me, I think this is not working for me. I think I shall try something different.
No, I definitely have always been more sex positive. And I actually didn't become an evangelical Christian until I was 19. So
right.
I didn't grow up in purity culture like a lot of people did from childhood. But once I became a Christian, I definitely had a couple years of purity culture exposure before I got married.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of this weird dichotomy of being overly sexual to an unhealthy degree before my conversion experience. And then afterwards entering this space that was so repressed sexually, I'm going, but this doesn't make sense to me. And I was in college at the time. I was in college for degrees in religion and psychology. And
nice.
So with my psychology background, I was fascinated with human sexuality, that aspect of psychology. But it was the late 90s, early aughts, and good girls from small towns didn't go to school to become sex coaches or sex therapists or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I did the good girl thing and got the MRS degree, which if you didn't go to a small Christian college, you won't get the joke. But I got married a couple
MRS
weeks after
you become the wife, the missus.
Yep, the missus. Yes. Yeah, I got married just a few weeks after I graduated with my undergrad.
Yeah.
And I just remained fascinated, studied everything I could get my hands on as far as theology and sexuality. And eventually, very long story short, but probably not actually short either, after I had my son, I joined an international online women's ministry. And I was asked to eventually was asked to join the leadership team, in part because of the wisdom that I brought to the conversations about sexuality and marriage.
Mm.
And so the work as the Christian Sexpert was born out of that other ministry, and seeing the damage of purity culture, seeing the damage of the obligation sex messaging, because purity culture doesn't go away once Christian women get married. It just turns
Oh,
into
real.
obligation sex messaging
Yeah.
and saying things like, "Oh, your husband is using pornography. Well, are you giving him enough sex? Oh,
Yes.
you
Yes. I
know,
hear that a lot.
yeah. Oh, you're postpartum and you're leaking bodily fluids from orifices that weren't previously even orifices. Make sure you give your husband a hand because, he's really suffering having to go without." And that's the kind of messaging that Christian women are being fed. And I'm going, I don't think any of you people have ever read your Bible, because that's not in there. In fact, that is absolutely against what the Bible says in multiple locations. And I swear some of you cut the Song of Solomon out of your Bibles if you do pick it up. And so I was very frustrated and confused. And kind of started, I started on social media, and I thought, oh, this is great. I'll just get on. I'll get on and I'll talk about how Christians can use vibrators and it's fine. And I have raging ADHD, so it'll probably only last a couple of weeks anyway, whatever. Um,
Right. That's so real.
and God was like, JK, joke's on you. We're going to do this for real. And so now, 3 years later, I have a legitimate business coaching women and couples into healthier sex lives. I have spoken at conferences in front of 40,000 women, telling them to have multiple orgasms. And every time something else new with the business happens, I'm like, okay, sure, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So this is what I want to ask is where do you find your information in the Bible? Give us some like Bible reference for like what are the rules? I'm like, tell us what the rules according to the Bible are, because you're like, okay, that is not in the Bible. This is not in the Bible. Tell us what
Right.
your give us some information about what actually is in the Bible about these sexual relations and what good girls. What could that look like?
Yeah. So a lot of people don't. So my one of my big things lately has been Bible literacy and the term exegesis, which is understanding that the Bible was not written in English. It was written in an ancient language.
Yeah.
And so here's where and helping people to understand that modern American evangelicalism is not the same thing as biblical Christianity, and they're not the same, and it bothers me. And so here's the example that I like to use to help people understand that it wasn't written in English, because people will read one of the verses that is weaponized primarily against women in the sexual space is 1 Corinthians 7:5, where Paul says, "Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent for a short time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer and fasting."
Mm.
And people use that to say that a wife can never say no to unwanted sexual touch from her husband. Or if they're trying to be a little more enlightened, they'll say, well, she just can't say no all the time. Like, you can say no if she's like sick, but like she has to come back within like 48 hours. Like that's a teaching that I've heard people, because I get sent videos of like bad sermons and things, and I've heard that
Right.
from the pulpit, right? So here's my thing. In 2000 years, if someone managed to find my phone and turn it on and look at the text messages between myself and my husband, they're going to think that we are eggplant and peach farmers.
Right, exactly. They will not have a construct that meant maybe something different
Right.
in this
They
day
will
and
lack
age.
the cultural context of
Like,
what an emoji is and what specifically an eggplant and a peach emoji represent.
they're like,
Right.
that's
And
what's for
so
dinner tonight. I
Yes.
mean, yes,
These
but also
people,
no.
exactly, exactly. And so when we are reading the Bible in modern English, we are lacking cultural context for things that the people writing the Bible wouldn't have included when they were writing it because their intended audience was not Becky from Milwaukee in 2025. Their intended audience was their contemporaries, right? And so when Paul was writing the do not deprive verse, he didn't include a lot of context because it was implied for his intended audience. And
Mm.
so that verse is not saying you can never say no to sex. That verse is saying that because what was happening is there were people that were being converted to Christianity. The gods that they had previously worshipped in Corinth required celibacy as a form of worship.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so Paul doesn't need to spell that out in his letter because he knows that they know that their gods require celibacy as worship. And that's the issue that he's trying to address. He's saying Jesus doesn't want your celibacy. That's what that verse is about. Don't use
Mm.
celibacy as a form of worship, but that context wasn't included because his readers would have understood that context.
Yes.
And so another one is I get a lot of good and bad feedback when I post about oral sex
Mm.
because people are like, oral sex, that's sodomy. First of all, sodomy wasn't a word until the 1300s. Okay. So that's not they wouldn't had had a construct for sodomy as a sin in the Bible, right?
Mm.
Okay. So first of all, sodomy was not a word that ever appears in the Bible
Yeah.
because it wasn't a word, right? Further, this is one of my like pet soapboxes.
Furthermore.
This is one of my pet soapboxes. Furthermore, people forget that the Bible exists in a state of duality. Yes, it is the whole, it is, my holy text, I believe it is the inspired word of God, given for my personal growth and relationship with Jesus. However, it is also a collection of different styles of books,
Mhm.
right? So we've got the Gospels are meant to spread the good news about Jesus. Every book that Paul wrote in the Bible is a letter to his friends.
Yeah.
It's a letter. Like I would write a letter to you, right? Song of Solomon is erotic poetry historically. So, again, to put this in modern American context, what style of music would you say that Britney Spears is? Like
I don't know. Pop.
bu- pop, bubblegum pop,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, you could, now I grew up in the 90s, but I have not ever heard every single Britney Spears song ever. But
Right.
somebody could play an obscure Britney Spears song for me, and I could recognize
Oh yeah,
the
that voice.
sound,
Yeah.
the voice and the sound, because all bubblegum pop sounds like bubblegum pop,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so when you hold up Song of Solomon against other erotic poetry of its time period, it's the same thing. It's bubblegum pop. It's
Right.
erotic poetry. And so when we look at things like this is all coming to a point. When we look at things like Song of Solomon 4:16, I have bookmarks on my website because I
Yeah.
do. Awake, O north wind, and come, O south. Blow upon my garden that its spices may flow out. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its pleasant fruits.
Uh yeah. I
She's
mean
not talking about kumquats.
that's not hard to interpret.
No, it's not. And that's not the only reference to oral sex in Song of Solomon. So when modern Christians get their panties in a wad and say that oral sex is sodomy, they've never picked up their Bibles, they're uncomfortable with their own sexuality, and they're very boring. Now,
Mm.
if you don't want to do oral sex because you don't enjoy performing or receiving, either way, I fully support you. But don't turn your ick into theology for all people. Don't be
Mm.
dumb. That's dumb.
So where do you think that comes from? Like this idea that purity culture even exists, and maybe even give a quick definition for our audience who did not grow up in purity culture, doesn't isn't familiar with it. Maybe give them a quick definition of what that is, and then let's get into why do you think it exists? Like where does this come from? I have my own thoughts on this too. So let's see what we got.
Okay, so two things. Purity, people get really mad when I say that we need to do away with purity culture because they're like, oh, you just want teenagers to have orgies. No. Why do you think the only option is orgies or purity culture? No. We have scientific evidence that purity culture harms women. Women raised in purity culture are twice as likely to experience female sexual dysfunction as their non-purity culture counterparts. Women
Mm.
raised in purity culture have less sexual education vocabulary as their non-purity culture counterparts. Purity culture is a distinct cultural movement that began in sort of the late 70s, maybe even a little before, kind of as a backlash to the free love movement of the 60s.
Yeah.
And its hallmarks of purity culture are high control and shame techniques that tries to control teenagers' behavior. If you go to my Facebook page, the Christian Sexpert on Facebook, I have a pinned post where we sort of define purity culture, and my community contributed their own experiences with purity culture and the trauma that they endured in specific churches. Because also,
Mm.
when I bring up specific points about purity culture, people who don't understand and really don't want to understand will say things like, well, it sounds like you were just part of a cult. No, this was a specific movement. And it also started to infiltrate popular culture. Because if you
Yes.
look historically at the 90s, Jessica Simpson, Britney Spears had purity rings. They talked about not having sex until marriage publicly, openly on MTV,
They
right?
did. Yeah, that's like my time period. I was in high school in the 90s. I remember all of that. And that is what I grew up in. I grew up in hot time, like purity culture, very in the box culture. Yeah.
Right. And so now one of my good friends, her name is Dr. Ashley Hudson. She just defended her dissertation studying the effects of purity culture on postpartum maternal mental health. Right.
Mm.
So we now have scientists that are studying the purity culture movement. And so if you there's an amazing podcast by Dr. Cami Hurst, and I forget who her guest was, but they actually look at the political and socioeconomic beginnings of purity culture, like truly the birth of purity culture and how it was driven by consumerism and politics and things like that.
Mm.
And so I will try and send you the link to that
Yeah, give us the
afterwards so
link
you
to
can
that. That sounds
put it in the
fabulous.
show
They would
notes.
love to
It
see
was,
that.
yeah, it was an amazing, even if you were not raised in purity culture, it's a fascinating conversation about how politicians, Jerry Falwell, you know,
Yeah.
was a huge part of that, Dobson, huge part of it. Right. So it's a fascinating conversation. And so it really boiled down to that was a really maybe unnecessarily verbose answer, but purity culture boils down to um, fetishizing and idolizing female sexuality for male consumption. A girl's worth was defined by the state of her hymen. So if she was not a virgin, she was worthless. And so youth pastors would do things like take a stick of gum and chew it up and say, if you go to your wedding night not a virgin, you're like this chewed gum. Nobody wants chewed gum, right? There's a ton of other terrible examples that you can browse through my content and find examples like that. But it really never, it was more focused on female virginity than it was male virginity. Certainly some males were impacted by it, but truly the focus was on female virginity. And so one of the things I say is pornography is just the flip side of purity culture. And purity culture is the flip side of pornography. It's like the Christian answer to pornography, because
Yeah.
both pornography and purity culture fetishize and idolize female sexuality for male consumption.
Yeah, I find it super interesting that the female is defined by their sexuality and then told in order to be a good woman, a good female, a good person of that
Your
gender,
worth, your entire
worth is based on like duality. It's like you need to look gorgeous, but like don't show too much cleavage. Like don't show, like in my religion, we couldn't show shoulders. We always said shoulders would take you to hell. But
yeah, let's talk about growing up in 90s purity culture and also 90s diet culture at the same time.
Oh, and then you're supposed to get married. So you're supposed to do all of the things. And then as a married person, like they wanted to have a public persona that they had this good wife, but then a dirty girl at home. But then nobody teaches you how to like go from having this shame, blame, guilt that you've had your entire life around sex and being open that way. And then all of a sudden you're supposed to forget all of that and just do all of the things in the bedroom. Yeah. Like good luck with that. That's not how any of that works. There's no like transition. It's like tomorrow you're supposed to figure it all out.
Yeah, there was no factual science-backed sexual education because the adults in the purity culture movement were afraid that giving teenagers too much information would make them too curious and would make them go out and do things.
Yeah.
So there was no science-backed education. But also boys were told things like, just don't think about sex, and when you get married, your wife will be there to fulfill your every desire. Well, I have had in 2025, I have had premarital coaching sessions with couples where she couldn't identify her clitoris. She couldn't identify her urethra versus her clitoris versus her vaginal canal. And so I'm literally teaching anatomy to 20, 30, 40-year-old women.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was no actual education.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even get a basic sex talk. I got nothing.
Yeah. For sure.
Not a single damn thing.
Right,
not even like in high school. They didn't even have like the sex talk of don't. I remember them talking about you can take a birth control pill if you don't want to get pregnant, but additionally, none of that was like available back then either.
Right.
And so like it was just the entire thing was don't do it. That was the entire education was don't, and nothing about any of anything.
Well, and also that was also the height of the AIDS fear. Right.
Huge.
And so a lot of the sex education that we might have, if we received any sex education in the 90s, it would have been heavily based on shame, from the religious aspect. Don't do it, you'll go to hell. But also fear. You can get an STD, you can get AIDS, you can get chlamydia. Like I distinctly remember learning about like chlamydia and all of these, which kind of like quicksand, more overblown than necessarily I've ever encountered in my grown-up life. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And not to say like sexual transmitted STIs now, STDs, you get the
Whatever
idea.
Like
those are very serious issues that do have a very real impact. But the way that people in the 90s acted, like it was, entire classrooms getting wiped out by AIDS was the implication in the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's exactly what I see too. I like the reference to quicksand. It's like, like somehow we thought that was going to be a bigger thing.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
Really thought quicksand. It was going to be a thing.
It was going to be a thing. Like, and not to say that it's not, because like, this is my warning to everyone. Please go to your doctors. Please be educated. Please protect yourself. Please have like healthy relationships. We're just talking about the general education we got. So
Right.
let's
This
go
is
back
not
to
about, like discrediting how serious anything is. It is
exactly because it is.
specifically referencing experience.
Yeah, because it definitely is. But let's go back and visit this idea of 90s diet culture, dressing certain ways, purity
Yes.
culture, all and like this the the standard was very, very thin in the 90s, like rail thin back then. Like that was the
Right.
standard of beauty. Like, how did all of those things, how did those all converge for you? You know.
Yeah, so if you guys are only listening to this and you're not watching it, I am a fat woman. I have always been fat. I have never been skinny in my life. And so growing up in the 90s and, you know, entering Christian spaces, in literally like 2000, I'm being told I can't wear tank tops because I will send my brother in Christ to hell because he will lust after my collarbone.
Yes,
But
yes.
also, you're fat and hideous and no one will ever marry you.
Simultaneously.
It's at the same time.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and everything, at least from my experience, was the female's fault. Like
Oh,
the
100%.
responsibility, the stewardship over if a sexual relation was going to happen, if they lusted, if they got into pornography, if they masturbated, it was your fault. Like there was
Right.
so much
We were the
within that.
gatekeepers. Yeah,
Yeah,
women
of
were the
that.
gatekeepers of sexuality.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, can we transition? Because I just talked about masturbation. What do you think about masturbation?
Um, okay, so it's complicated, right? So from the perspective as a Christian sexpert who reads the Bible and looks at context and things,
Yeah.
there are no specific um, prohibitions against self-touch in the Bible.
Yeah.
However, the Bible does address lust. So
Mm-hmm.
if someone comes to me and they're looking for Christian, advice, and they say, "Can I masturbate?" My first question is, "Well, why are you wanting to?"
Mm.
Is the first question. And can you do so without lusting? Can
Mm.
you do it without lusting the first 10 times, but that 11th time is going to, take you into a place of lust? And I don't give to, I make people really angry for a literal laundry list of reasons. But one of the reasons is I don't always give black and white answers.
Yeah.
Christians, especially evangelical Christians, modern American evangelicals, especially, really love duality. They
Mm.
don't like gray. They want a black and white. Here's the rule. Here's how you follow it. The end, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because it shuts down independent thought,
Right.
and that's a whole thing. But I if someone comes to me with that question, I'm going to start asking questions. Are you married and you are wanting to self-touch because you don't want to hop into bed with your spouse? Are you doing it because you're avoiding something with your spouse? Or is it a situation where you're married and he's deployed and you guys are looking for ways to remain intimate even though he's deployed? Like, I know a couple where he was deployed for a year. Every month he would send her a new spicy toy, and
Cute.
they would use the Marco Polo app, which, if you're unfamiliar, it's a video messaging app. So she was a homeschool mom of, 17,000 children. And so and he's halfway across the world. They can't hop on a FaceTime because of time differences, schedules, and things like that. So when she got the kids down at night, she would hop onto Marco Polo, record a video for him. He would watch it when he had privacy and opportunity to do so, would record a video for her, send it back, and they would go back and forth like that. And it was a fantastic way for them to remain sexually intimate, even though they were not physically together for a year. Was that by the strictest definition of the word masturbation? Yes. I can't see anything in the Bible that would call that particular situation sin, though.
Mm. I think it's such into like the individual couple, like that couple, their circumstance, what they feel comfortable with, what, helps bring them closer together. That's, I think, my thing is like, does it bring you closer to your spouse? Is
Right.
it within what you've agreed with your significant other? Is that where you're at? You guys have good hearts. That's my perspective on it. But like we talk about masturbation, now where do vibrators fit in the whole world of this for you? Because that's kind of in that same land. Like I grew up in a land where those were very taboo. Like the first time I got one, I was like, this is it. I am going straight to hell. Additionally, pretty rad. But
But the road to hell feels really good.
the road to hell, I mean, is paved with some pretty good shit. But like, it kind of feels in that thing of it, it's not even a person. It's like a man stimulating thing that's, its own robotic whatever. People twist it in a million different directions.
And I've heard all of them whenever I talk about toys on my socials. I have a lot of things to say about toys. Okay, first of all, being anti-toys for all people at all times is ableist. Because there are couples out there who cannot. So we have to go back to some basic sex education that you probably didn't receive in high school. On average, men only need 5.4 minutes of pounding to orgasm. Women need 14 to 20 minutes of direct clitoral stimulation in order to orgasm. You are not getting that direct clitoral stimulation from him hopping on top of you for 5 minutes. You're just not. The angles don't work. Okay, now let's say that she is married to a man with carpal tunnel or arthritis, or I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. My joints don't stay in their assigned seats. I have to wear special things on my hands to keep my joints where they belong. And these rings on my hand are not conducive to touching anyone's genitals ever. They would hurt soft tissue.
Yeah.
So if she's married to a man who cannot physically use his hands or potentially his mouth to offer her 14 to 20 minutes of direct clitoral stimulation, what's a girl to do?
Yeah.
So it's ableist to be anti-toys for all people all the time. So then I started getting people on my socials saying, well, unless it's for a medical reason, I don't think people should use them. Really? Just say you don't want to use it. That's fine. But stop telling other people what to do in the bedroom when the Bible doesn't specifically address sex toys. But Angela, they didn't have vibrators when the Bible was written because there was no electricity. No, but they still had sex toys. We have archaeological evidence.
We have archaeological evidence.
We have archaeological evidence of dildos.
We do.
Being in existence before the Bible was written. They were usually made out of smooth, polished wood or stone.
Yep.
Okay? Like, they were a thing. If God really cared about you using something not attached to your body, he would have told you when he wrote the Bible, but he didn't. So just admit you're uncomfortable with your own sexuality. It's fine. That's why I'm here. Okay? So and the way I describe it is I can get invited to a party at my friend's house. And I show up. First of all, there were no like formal invitations. It was just like hey, we're hanging out if you want to come over, whatever. Right. Sure. I come over. Nobody brought any food. There's no food. There's no snacks, right? There's no decorations. There's no activities. It's one of those things where everybody's just kind of sitting around staring at each other like, okay, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. I kind of want to do something, but I don't know what I want to do. Now, compare that to a party where you receive like an actual invitation in the mail. It tells you like, we're going to dress up, like put on a fancy dress. There's going to be planned food that is delicious. There's going to be planned activities to keep the party moving. And that's kind of like using toys. You can have, and I could, like that first example, I could have a fantastic time at my friend's house and it would be wonderful and great because I am spending time with my friends. But is it different to go to a party where you put on a pretty dress and there's planned activities and really good food? Yes. It's also akin to I offer you one cupcake with no sprinkles and a cupcake with pretty pink sprinkles. What are you going to choose? Probably the one with sprinkles. Vibrators are sprinkles for the majority of couples. You can enjoy a delicious cupcake without sprinkles, but sometimes sprinkles just make life more fun.
For sure. Well, and that's the thing too is sometimes this is me. I'm like, sometimes you have 5 minutes. And it's like,
Yes.
we have 5 minutes. Guess what? It goes faster, at least for me and a lot of
Yeah.
women that I know. We're gonna get there faster. He's gonna go in 5 minutes anyway. And then we can
Right.
start a day and have like this beautiful connection time. We don't have to be like, oh, we don't have time for you, and oh, I feel bad, and we just like,
Well,
yeah.
so
It
that's
could be like
actually,
we have tools for this.
yeah, well, and that's actually referencing the fact that we have a massive orgasm gap in this country.
Yeah.
So, in particular in evangelical culture, but the orgasm gap is men are orgasming over 90% of the time during a sexual encounter, whereas women are only orgasming less than 50% of the time.
Wow.
So, why are you not using every available tool to close the orgasm gap? Why would she want
Yeah.
to have sex with you if she's not orgasming on a consistent basis? And like my husband thinks he's hilarious, like all men, dads, dad joke connoisseurs
Mm.
do. Excuse me. And his analogy is, why would I reach for a screwdriver when I have a power drill available to me?
Mm.
That's his toy analogy
I
that he
like
finds
that.
deeply amusing.
I like that. But can we talk to the men in the room for a minute? Can we talk to the men in
Yeah.
the room for a minute? Because I have met a lot of guys who, when women bring this up, they feel hurt. They feel less than. They feel like, oh, what I'm doing isn't good enough. So now you want to bring something else in. They have a reaction to that. What's your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
It's not about you.
Mm.
And if you are making it about you, that's why you're not having sex more. Because here's the thing. We have a cultural issue in not just evangelical culture, but America at large, where men are told feelings are a woman's thing. Boys don't cry, man up, walk it off, right? Who's going to tell them that anger is an emotion? Right, but emotions are a woman's thing, right? And
Right.
then we wind up with coaches and experts out here saying things like, now, women, I know that you want emotional connection before you can have sex with him, but he needs to have sex with you so he can feel emotionally connected. Because he wasn't ever allowed to experience his emotions. And so
Mm.
he doesn't know how to experience his emotions. So his entire identity is also wrapped up in his sexual performance because men are expected to perform sexually and express their maleness through their sexuality, right?
Yeah.
Women are condemned for expressing any hint of sexuality. We're called whores and pick-me's and sluts and all the things, but men are expected and encouraged to express their maleness through their sexuality. And so now we have a man who doesn't know how to access his emotions unless he is experiencing the chemical cocktail of orgasm, right? Because orgasm produces chemicals in your brain that it's not just like the physical release, it's the
Oh,
dopamine and the
obviously. Yeah.
oxytocin and all the things, right? So he feels connected after an orgasm, but he's never done the authentic work of connection because he hasn't ever been allowed to do so because of society and expectations and the patriarchy and blah blah blah, all the buzzwords, right? And so when she wants to introduce a vibrator because she's not orgasming on a consistent basis, he feels threatened because it's speaking to every insecurity that he has because he's supposed to express his maleness through his ego and his sexual performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so
So,
it's
yeah.
not just about the vibrator. It's about every insecurity he has. And I don't coddle anyone. And so, unfortunately, like, it's not about you. It's not about your ego. The men who have the most sex ensure that their wife is orgasming as frequent, frequently and as much as possible, right?
Absolutely.
Because women are the multi-orgasmic creatures. Men have a very long refractory period and can usually only orgasm once per sexual encounter, usually about once a day.
Yeah.
Women can, like, there's no limit to the amount of orgasms that a woman can have in a single sexual encounter. And so, one of the things that I say that gets everybody riled up, I'm like, it should be like a 5-to-1 ratio. Like, she should be coming
Yeah.
like 5 times for every one of yours.
Well,
And so,
considering that, like, that's a possibility. Like, you can come 5 times until there once. The fact that the actual statistic
of the
is
orgasm gap, so huge.
50% to one when the
Yeah,
capability is multiples here, that's insanity. Because if you actually
I
like
know.
think about the statistics and the math out, that doesn't mean like one out of every two girls is having an orgasm every time. It could mean this girl over here is having four with her encounter, and these other three women got nothing.
It could be. Yeah. I haven't teased out the statistics that way, but it's entirely possible. The amount of women who come to me for coaching and I say, "Okay, are you orgasming every time?" And they're like, "Well, no." Okay, well, that's part of the problem. We
Yeah.
have to, like, you are never going to want sex if you aren't enjoying it.
Mm. What's a good way to get women to start speaking up with their partner and start to even recognize what their needs are? I mean, like, step one is recognize what their needs are. They're in this where I'm not orgasming, but maybe they don't even know their body enough to know how to get to that point. And then to be able to speak about it in a safe way. I think those two things would make a lot of difference for them.
Yeah. So one of the things that I talk about, I have a private Patreon community where I can teach the things without, getting my socials banned,
Yeah.
because that's always a problem in my line of work, especially when I'm consistently pissing somebody off and they're reporting my content.
Yeah.
So my Patreon, I have an entire series in my Patreon because here's one of the things that I talk about is as women, we are socially conditioned to disconnect from our bodies from a very early age. Right.
Mm.
Oh, you got your first period? Pull an Elsa, conceal, don't feel. You still have to go to school.
Yep.
You might be writhing in pain because of your first period cramps, but too bad, so sad. Right. And you have to disconnect from that pain in order to function. Well, nobody teaches us how to reconnect when it comes time to hop into bed. And so if we are so perpetually disconnected that we won't allow ourselves to feel pain, that doesn't turn back on just because it's pleasurable.
Mm.
Right? And so I have an entire series teaching women how to reconnect to their bodies and how to start recognizing pleasure within their own bodies, experiencing pleasure, things like that. So that's kind of part one of your, but also, like, I hate to use another social media buzzword, mindfulness activities can help with that. Um, sorry, made everybody mad. I know. Um, But as far as communication, one of the big barriers, especially for women who are raised in purity culture, is shame. Now, whether
Hmm.
you were raised in purity culture or not, it's still, like I said, women are not socially allowed to express their sexuality. We are condemned and shamed for any expression of sexuality, unless it is in reference to a male consuming that sexuality, right?
Right.
So, like the beer ads with the girls in bikinis, that girl is quite obviously there for his consumption. And so
Yeah.
that's okay. But if it's about her pleasure or her experience, no, absolutely not. You're a whore, right? And so speaking verbally can feel really intimidating because you feel like you don't have the language for it. You feel like you don't know how. You're also deeply afraid of being rejected or
Yes.
shamed for expressing it. And so one of the things that I recommend is a sex journal. So I wrote a sex journal, if it's going to focus. I don't know.
Yeah,
This is
it did. It came up.
okay. Intimate conversations. This has over 100 prompts designed to help guide the conversations. Because if it feels intimidating to talk about a specific thing, now you can just be like, well, it was in the journal. I had to, like, it was just here. Like,
It asked me. I just answered
right, right.
it.
So it feels less threatening, right? And
Right.
so, like, there's so many, like, a wide range of prompts in here. Things like, I've never told you about this fantasy. I want to go in this kind of date in the future. Um, I fantasized about this, but I don't really want to experience this in real life, right?
Mm.
Um, so ton of different, over 100 prompts. And the way that, and you don't have to use this, you can use a regular journal and just write your own thing in it. But the way that a journal like this works, you write something in here. You give it to your spouse to read. Don't make it weird and stare into his soul while he reads it. Okay. Give him time and privacy to read it. He's going to read your response. This is his opportunity to get curious. He's going to say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that you fantasized about this thing. What is it about this that turns you on? And then, in addition to his curiosity, he's going to write his own response. And he's
Mm.
going to say, I fantasize about this thing, but I don't know that I want to experience it. And then he's going to give it back to you, and he's not going to make it weird and stare into your soul while you read it. And you just pass it back and forth. And that over time, that will start to give you the confidence to start verbally expressing things, because you will not only be practicing the vocabulary, practicing the language around it, but the practice of he's not going to leave me because I said that I want him to suck my toes. You know, I wrote it and we're still married. Like that's going to
That's
help build the
helpful.
confidence.
Yes. What a great tool. I love that. Okay, I can't believe how fast our time has gone. Like we'll have to have you back another time. I bet our audience is loving this. So, are you ready for a quick lightning round? And then we're going to tell everyone more about where to find you.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Okay. Weirdest DM you've gotten as the Christian Sexpert.
That's hard because, like, I don't want to kink shame, because I've definitely gotten some questions in my DMs about, are certain kinks okay?
Right.
And I don't want to kink shame. So actually, it's going to be okay. So this, I'm going to tell this one. This boomer messaged me, who is a pastor and also a counselor, to tell me that he was mad about some piece of content that I had posted.
Mm.
And he was like, you shouldn't argue with your elders. And I was like, joke's on you. The Bible says not to look down on someone because they're young. What now,
Love that.
pastor? And
That's a good
um,
one.
he actually, I turned that into its own piece. Like, I posted screenshots and turned that into its own piece of content. So thank you. I monetized your hate mail.
Exactly. Hey, that is how it is done. That is how it's done. Okay, do you have a sexy playlist and what's your favorite song on there?
Okay, so I should have a sexy playlist for my followers, but I have sensory issues, my nervous system is broken, and so I am auditory avoidant. And
Mm.
so if you try and turn on music in my personal bedroom, my brain will explode instead. But what I love to do to answer this question is, I love finding songs when I'm doing like trending sounds on TikTok to make
Mm.
content, and finding different songs and making videos based on the lyrics and
Right.
sit, because going back to like women, these are supposed to be quick. I'm terrible at quick. All right, women are terrible. They feel intimidated to initiate sex, right? And so I love to find songs with great lyrics that women can send the song to their husband and be like, I want this tonight. And the lyric
Mm.
is, there's some really great songs out now. So the most recent one I did was Beg on Your Knees by Ash to Eden.
Love it.
Um, Really great lyrics, and you can just send him that song and be like, oh, what do you think about this? And then you don't have to be like, do you want to have sex? Like, that's just opening the door.
Cute. I love that. What a great way to talk about that because in the bedroom, like we have all different sensory things that work best for us, but I love using songs in a different way. That's fun. Okay, so what's one purity culture phrase you used to hear a lot that you would hope to be banned forever? You're like, if I hear that goddamn phrase one more time, I swear to you right now, what should be banned forever from purity culture that they used to say?
You have to dress modestly because you're going to cause your brother to stumble. That is mashing up two unrelated scriptures together out of context also, and making women responsible for men's sin. And it is still in use today.
Wow. The one I got brought up with was modest is hottest.
Is hottest.
Ugh. So I'm still your sexual toy, but like do it this way. Like there was like things that people would do to be like, it would cover the things, but it would be like skin tight, and they'd be like, oh, that works because it's hot still. And you're just like, is it what? You're sending me mixed messages. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna do one more. What's a good one? Okay. Okay, this is an easy one. Finish this sentence. Women deserve blank in bed.
Good sex.
Good sex. What does that mean?
Healthy women in safe marriages don't turn down good sex for no reason. And so good sex is going to look different for everybody, but big picture, the orgasm gap. Are you orgasming on a consistent basis? Do you feel safe to say no to sex without repercussion? And not just like he's going to hold you down at knife point and force it, but like if you say no, is he going to pout? Is he going to slam doors? Is he going to be cranky for the next however many days until you give in and give him sex? Do you feel safe to say no? That's all part of good sex.
Absolutely. Okay, Angela, where can people find you? I'm sure they're going to have lots more questions. They're going to want to come follow you. Where's the best place to follow you?
I am the Christian Sexpert across all social media platforms, and my website is thechristiansexpert.com.
Beautiful thing. And you said you had a Patreon group. Where can they find that? On patreon.com?
Yep, patreon.com. Search the Christian Sexpert. It's also linked on my website. I can send you the links if you want to put it in the show notes.
Fabulous. Whatever links you have, we're going to throw them all in the description and in the show notes so that makes it easier for you to find her. And what beautiful, safe ways for you to explore your sexuality and be happy and have orgasms. It's great. I mean, how do you not fall in love with that? Let's do it, right? Angela, you are the kind of voice we need in this conversation about faith and sex and embodiment and all of that. So if you're faking it and you're done with that in the bedroom or wherever, go follow her immediately, binge all of her content, read the captions, and let yourself blush a little, laugh a lot, and heal the parts of you that were told that sex wasn't for you, because it totally is. You deserve good sex, real sex, ridiculously used sex. And until next time, this is Julie May, and this is the Ridiculously You podcast. I am so excited to have had Angela on here today. And with that, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, guys.
Share the spark, take it higher, hit subscribe, bring a friend, let the wildness never